art generators do require skill. Oh my god, how do I say this? Hey, I'm Krishie, I'm a computer scientist turned portrait artist, and I'm here to explain everything to do with AI in the art community. This video is divided up into different chapters, from how AI art is generated, to the legal stuff, the ethics, and then final thoughts to make it easier for you to navigate. Alright, so first up, how does AI generate art? AI art is generated through machine learning models. Let's start with transformers and diffusion models. These models are two separate methods, but when it comes to AI art generation, they can both work together. So this is what Midjourney and DALL-E use. Let's start with transformers. They take an input, break down the text, deciphers its meaning, and then generates images relating to the written prompt. Pretty simple, right? Diffusion models, they will generate an image, but it will be full of noise. So an image of a carrot could look like a collection of orange and green pixels, but over time, with more training data, it will start to look clearer and more identifiable as a carrot and not as a pumpkin. So diffusion models denoise these images. So with more data, the more accurate the generated image. The training process for all of these AI models involve a lot of big data, so a large amount of information stored in a database. During this training, the AI learned how to recognize patterns, textures, colors, compositions. Basically a really intensive crash course on technical anatomy, for the most part. But here's where it gets interesting. If you type in the exact same prompt on multiple different programs, they will generate different images. This is because the models have been created by different people and therefore have been trained by different data. There are loads more other models, and if you want to learn more, then check out my video up here. It does get a little bit nerdy, but it gives you a lot more information of how generative AI works. Okay, so there's clearly a lot that goes into generating an AI image, but where does AI art stand legally? The training data from these models contain publicly available data found across the internet. But that's the problem. The internet is full of information and misinformation, but the AI, as it stands today, isn't powerful enough to know what is or what isn't legally or morally acceptable. So that means the AI can push and promote stereotypes, spread fake news, invade privacy. I mean, I'm sure you've seen those deepfakes of DiCaprio and Jenna Ortega, right? To give you an example, if you type in construction workers, they will all be male. If you type in nurses, they will all be female. At one point in an open source image generator, there were a lot of not safe for work training data that was linked to the word Asian. So can you imagine what else these models are training against? If your likeness or your art is being used in datasets to train AI, how will you know? You didn't consent to it in the first place, but it's still being used. It seems like if it's on the internet, then it's fair game. I mean, these photos of Donald Trump helping the injured during the hurricane went viral. At a glance it looks real, but if you look closer, you'll see that they've been generated using AI. Images like this could not only affect the upcoming US election, so it could have serious political and economical impacts, but it could also escalate fear during what is already a very intense situation. But here's what I don't understand. If it's generally accepted that infringing on the copyright of other celebrities like this is unethical, then why is it okay to infringe on the copyright of artists, graphic designers, photographers? Why do these rules not apply to the creative industry? I don't get it. Recreating real images by real people without consent does not seem ethical. Just because the training data is widely accessible, it doesn't mean that it's devoid of any copyright. There's no agreement from the creators on the internet to allow these models to use their likeness or their work in training. It just sort of happens. So with AI generated images, who owns a copyright? Section 306 of the Copyright Act states that the US Copyright Office will register an original work of authorship, provided that the work was created by a human being. But AI is a machine. So AI generated images have no owner? But here's where the lines are blurry. Even though these images are generated via a machine, you could argue that it needed a human to develop it, a human to provide training data, and a human to provide the prompt. But the thing is that these images have still fundamentally been created using AI. AI decided on the placements, the specific coloring, the clothing. You could make the prompt as long and as descriptive as you want, but the image was still generated by AI. If the AI image had a human element to it, so let's say that the art was created by a human with tiny bits of AI touch-ups, this would be classified as human generated and therefore eligible for copyright, because the bulk of it was created by a human. But if it was AI generated and had tiny bits of human touch-ups, it would fall into a grey area because how many human elements do you need to add to this art piece in order to claim copyright? Right now, we don't know. In the UK, the Copyright Designs and Patents Act states that the author is the person by whom the arrangements necessary for the creation of the work are undertaken. Now, this is vague because who is this talking about? So, is that the person who owns the AI model? Is it the programmers who built it in the first place? What about the developers who look after the database? And what about the artist whose work has been trained against? Or maybe it's the person who typed in the prompt? AI images wouldn't be possible in the first place if it wasn't for all of those people. So is a copyright held by one person, loads of people, or no one at all? There's loads of movements going on online about art and AI art, and some very fake movements too, like Break the Pencil, which started off as a joke but has now turned into this. But either way, there's nothing to suggest that AI art or AI generated images falls under any form of copyright, as it stands right now. But what if tomorrow a new law is passed that AI generated images infringes on the copyright of other artists using training data? What would that say for all of the AI art that has already been generated? Maybe dozens of class action lawsuits against companies? Anyone found selling these images or sharing it on social media could also find themselves in legal trouble? Maybe cease and desist letters from artists, more lawsuits and potentially fines? And yeah, it would be hard to prove whose art trained which AI image, but does it matter? But then again, I'm not a lawyer, so take all of that with a grain of salt. There has been a lot of fake news being spread around on social media, but this one especially stands out to me. This is a story that's being shared apparently from the advice of some mystery lawyer, basically luring artists into a false sense of security. I've seen this pop up a few times on my feed lately, especially in the last week, with artists thinking that all they have to do to stop Meta's AI from training on their art is by posting this to their story. But that's not how Instagram's policies work. If you want to opt out of Meta's AI training on Instagram, then do this. Go to your profile page and click on the 3 lines at the top right corner. Scroll down to More Info and Support. Click About. Click on Privacy Policy. And then learn more about your right to object. And then just fill out the form. I believe this works for people based in the EU because of GDPR, but not necessarily from anywhere else because the laws are different. And this is what I don't get. But if I share a portrait on Instagram and I'm from the UK and I've opted out, but if somebody else shared it, that portrait will be used to train AI. Because the person sharing it may not have opted out, or they may not be able to opt out because of where they're from. So my work will be trained for AI anyway. So what's the point of all this? There's loads more of these social media posts either rage baiting or trying to lure artists into false senses of security, most of which are trying to capitalize on the Stop AI movement, which makes me wonder, all of this talk about AI, but what purpose is it actually serving? There have been lawsuits that have been filed by artists wanting control over their work. There's this really frustrating German lawsuit in particular. Robert Kaneschk, I think that's how you pronounce it, is a photographer and used the website Have I Been Trained to see if his photographs had been trained by AI. And apparently they did by a company called Lion, so he sued them. Just to give you a bit of background, Lion is one of the many companies that looks after AI's training data. But Lion won that lawsuit because of German copyright law. This lets certain research organizations reproduce work even if the original author has opted out, and it turns out Lion fit that description. It's bad enough already, but it gets worse. After winning, Lion wanted nearly $1,000 in damages from Kaneschk for what they described as being an unjustified claim. So not only did this photographer have his work temporarily taken from him without consent, but he also lost $1,000 as well as any other legal fees. Ridiculous. Okay, so we can see that AI generated images falls into a grey legal area, but how is it being used in industry? From Coca-Cola to Lego to Mr. Beast, apparently. There are a lot of companies actively using AI art in their products or during promotion. Even Wacom, a company that creates drawing tablets, a company whose target market are artists, were caught using AI in a marketing campaign. Like, what? Square Enix, a development company that has created games like Final Fantasy, Life is Strange, Kingdom Hearts, has also been found guilty of using AI. Their game Foam Stars, which is basically their answer to Splatoon, was partially created by AI. I believe that generative AI has the potential to not only reshape what we create, but also to fundamentally change the processes by which we create, including programming. Okay, so quick reminder, but as well as being an artist, I'm also a computer scientist. Programming is hard. Sometimes it makes me want to pull my hair out. Sometimes it has made me pull my hair out, but every time I take a breath, go outside, touch some grass, go back inside, and then fix the problem every time. But using AI as something to hide behind when something gets tough, I mean, once or twice when you're really stuck, I can understand, but don't rely on it. What is the point of asking an algorithm to do the work for you? I mean, you're a software developer, so develop. But I don't think using AI to assist you is as bad as relying on just AI. We experimented with Midjourney using simple prompts to produce abstract images. We love what was created and use them as the final album covers players will see in the game. Everything else was created entirely by our development team. Oh, okay, so it was art that they generated with AI, not programming. According to Square Enix, AI was used in 0.01% of the game. 0.01%, that's it. To be completely honest, the album covers are in-game album covers, and they are low priority assets. I think that they were just testing the waters on what they could get away with when it comes to AI generated art. The backlash was strong, but I don't think it was strong enough to stop Square Enix from doing it again. But either way, do you think that the backlash was justified? Personally, yes. Remember, they used Midjourney. Midjourney uses diffusion models, so like we talked about earlier, they denoise images like this until they generate a clearer image. Now, there's leaked information online that states that Midjourney's datasets include thousands of artists and their art styles which have been laundered through the system, including famous artists like Matt Groening. Laundered. Is that ethical? If AI had to be used in industry, it would make sense if an artist was hired alongside it to use this tool, because I feel like we would be the only ones who would know how to use it in a way that makes sense in terms of theory. Especially because AI, as it stands right now, is not smart enough to know where it's going wrong. This reminds me of this post on Threads, I think it was, with an AI artist claiming that their skills are improving in 6 months with using AI, which is not correct. Remember, like we talked about earlier, generative art improves with more training data. It has little to do with how descriptive the prompt is. It's also unfortunate because we could argue that the newer image has a lot more mistakes than the older one. Like the Donald Trump image, from a distance it looks fine, but if you look closer... I've seen a few arguments on Reddit with AI artists saying that it's very similar to a brain processing information, but AI tools are faster and they work with more data. And I kind of agree with this, but there is a very important point that is being forgotten. Influence versus imitation. Our brains rely on memory and retention, but those memories are unstable because they're not always accurate. This gives us plenty of room to inject our own emotions, behaviors, and personal style into an artwork that will show influence to the piece it was inspired by. Every artist is inspired by another. But AI, as it stands right now, can only do what it's told. Sure, it can process information faster, but it will generate images without fully understanding what it's looking at or why it's doing that. This is why AI art feels empty and lacks any emotional depth. Pros is that it's faster and companies love cutting costs where they can. AI, as it stands right now, can imitate everything except for the human experience. I've seen a lot of people online say that AI art generators make art more accessible, which doesn't make any sense to me. Anyone can create art. Anyone. There are hundreds and thousands of tutorials online, some of which are free. Art is already accessible. When it comes to true artistic expression, human art has qualities that AI cannot imitate, no matter what information it has stored in its dataset. Just because AI is faster, it doesn't mean that it's more powerful. When it comes to companies like Square Enix using AI art, the question of ethics comes into play again. We don't know what art these album covers were trained against or how much imitation was done. And what about the exploitation of artists whose work has been trained against, who may not have been fairly compensated for their work? The only thing that this is doing is undermining the value of the artist whose work has been trained against. There's a lot of tension between artists and AI artists, and stuff like this isn't helping. But do we have bias? Technologies improve, so industries change. Our healthcare systems are better, fraud detection is better, the agriculture industry as a whole has been turned on its head. And the creative industry is no different. We've got everything from the introduction of cameras, enhanced software, drawing tablets, higher quality paper. Technology has helped us improve too, and the introduction of computers has unlocked this whole realm of digital media, like graphic design and digital art, both of which have been accepted into the art community. But what makes AI artists different? When we think of AI, we think of technology, we think of automation, we think of replacement, we think of obsolescence. Photoshop was designed to assist photographers. It's viewed as a tool. AI image generators, as it stands right now, is being used as a replacement. But why? Cheaper? Easier to generate? No longer requires skill? But that's where we go wrong. AI art generators do require skill. Hear me out. I've seen a lot of AI artists on social media talking about how difficult it is to write prompts, to be able to generate images exactly the way that you want it. Oh my god, how do I say this? But I believe that. I believe that it does take creative skill to come up with an idea and try to generate it using a prompt. When it comes to artists, human artists, we do this as well. We have an idea of what we want to draw. We also use our creativity to think of drawing prompts and concepts. That is a skill shared by both artists and AI artists. But here's the difference. For artists, coming up with a concept is only a small part of the process. For AI artists, coming up with a concept is the entire process. For artists, we have to think of a prompt and find a way to get it to look like that on paper. We have to figure out how to compose our drawing to tell a story, how to create patterns and perspective, how to refine the concept if something isn't working out. We do everything. I think that this is why AI artists haven't been given as much respect by the art community. If you want to conceptualize and come up with cool new concepts and ideas for artwork, and if that's all you want to do, then that's fine. If you value technology more, that's also fine. But personally, it is a little bit insulting to think that creating art is just about coming up with the idea in the first place, and then coming out with statements like this. Not every AI artist feels this way, but we know how the internet works. The meaner comments are usually the loudest. But let's break it down even more. What is an AI artist? What does that term actually mean? We could argue that the technology itself is the AI and the artist, but right now it's being labeled to the people who enter the prompts. I don't quite understand this. Thinking of an idea and actually putting it into practice are two very different things. Let me give you an example. Steve wants to commission me to draw a portrait of him. He tells me what he wants and I draw it. I show it to him like, hey, what do you think? Steve responds back with changes. I make the changes. How about now? Steve is happy and he walks away. So who's the artist, me or Steve? Steve created the concept and I'm constantly modifying it after every iteration, but I was the one who drew it. I was the artist. So what about AI artists? Brian wants to commission the AI. Brian tells the AI what he wants and then the AI does it. The AI shows it to him like, hey, what do you think? Brian responds back with changes. The AI makes the changes. Okay, how about now? Brian is happy and he walks away. Now you tell me, what's the difference here? Typing a prompt into a generator does not make you an artist. It makes you a customer. It makes you a conceptualizer. We can make lengthy Twitter posts, complain on Reddit, start satirical cults on Instagram, but whether we like it or not, AI is here to stay. So as artists, should we be seeing AI as a threat or an opportunity? If AI was incorporated into the creative industry to be used as a tool, I could definitely see it revolutionizing things. An AI that's used to assist, not replace. This is a far better use of resources, energy, time. This will help the creative industry preserve the existence of human art whilst making it more accessible. Although I still don't get that argument, art is already accessible. I used to think that AI art was a fad, you know, like a trend that would go out of fashion, but I've seen more and more people creating AI art, sharing it, displaying it in galleries, winning art competitions, being sold for ridiculous amounts of money. Like this portrait is called Edmund de Bellamy, which was created by Obvious. In 2018, it was sold for $432,500 US. Yeah. It's so ironic because these AI artists are claiming that their work is better than human artists, but they clearly have no value for it. Because now in 2024, AI art is being sold at conventions for as little as £1, which is impossible for artists to compete with. If AI art is so difficult to generate and takes more skill than artists, then why is it being valued so low? I actually slashed my prices down at my last convention, but it still wasn't enough to compete with all of the AI art. Is this fair? Should AI images be sold? The first AI art generator was back in the 70s when an abstract painter, Harold Cohen, wanted to see if a computer could be used to assist artists. It was able to generate these very simple outline shapes that Cohen would use to colour in, but it wasn't really used anywhere. And then suddenly in 2018, people were like, whoa, AI, how cool, because it's new and fresh and it's a sign that things are improving scientifically. But now towards the end of 2024, people see AI art and they're like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, that's That's nice. Because I think we've seen it all now. There's nothing that exciting or interesting about it because it always looks magical even if there are mistakes. And then when an artist creates something, it takes knowledge, it takes experience, it takes heart. It's from here. You're an artist because you enjoy the concept, the process, and the result all the same. I've seen loads of comments on threads especially of AI artists saying stuff like, it's so much more than just typing something out, but they don't give us any more reason beyond that. But then what? What do you mean? Tell us more. I really would like to challenge AI artists to try creating art, whether it's with a pen, on an iPad, or whatever. You might realize that the journey through it all is maybe more rewarding than just coming up with a concept in the first place. If you like thinking of new ideas and concepts, then that's amazing. But does this make you an artist or a conceptualist? And for all of the other artists watching this, and if you're worried about your livelihood being taken over by a computer, then remember this. There is a very large demographic of people who enjoy AI art. There's also a very large demographic of people who enjoy human art. We're just gonna have to share this space for now anyway. Our biggest hurdle right now is all the legal stuff and intellectual property violations. But once the laws are clearer, I really do think that we will see change. In the meantime, find your audience, connect with them, and don't stop creating. What matters most is the story behind every art piece, the heart that you put into it, and the message that you're trying to convey. If you like generate AI art or if you use it in your workflow, let us know in the comments. I would love to hear your take on AI art and some of the things that I've mentioned in this video. I know that this video is a little bit different to stuff that I normally make, but if you enjoyed it, leave a like, comment if you want more stuff like this, and subscribe. I actually really enjoyed making this video. It was really fun doing all the research and learning stuff and being able to put my thoughts out in this way. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye.